In 1920, the literary world was introduced to a diminutive Belgian detective with a flair for precision, a twirling mustache, and a mind that could solve the most complex mysteries with nothing more than his little grey cells. This man, Hercule Poirot, was about to become one of the most iconic characters in detective fiction, captivating readers and audiences alike with his cerebral brilliance and eccentric charm. But who was the true inspiration behind this master detective? Was Poirot purely a creation of Agatha Christie's brilliant mind, or was he inspired by someone from the real world? To uncover the truth, we must look beyond the pages of Christie's novels and into the annals of history. Meet Charles Augustus, Auguste, Lucien Dupin, a Belgian detective whose methods, demeanor, and career mirrored Poirot's brilliance. Dupin, like Poirot, relied not on brute strength or flashy tools, but on his intellect, his observations, and his unparalleled ability to read the minds of criminals. But what were the connections between Dupin and Poirot? How did the real-life detective leave a mark on the fictional sleuth who would come to define detective fiction for generations? This is the real-life inspiration behind Agatha Christie, says Poirot, Unraveling the Master Detective, a journey through history, literature, and the genius of the Queen of Crime herself. Get ready to be amazed as we reveal the story behind the detective who would go on to solve some of the most baffling cases in literary history. Hit that subscribe button, because this journey will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about one of the greatest detectives of all time. Hercule Poirot's first appearance was in Agatha Christie's The Mysterious Affair at Styles in 1920. In this debut novel, Poirot is introduced as a retired Belgian police detective who, now living in England, decides to work as a private sleuth. It is a story that not only captures the essence of a master detective, but also begins to lay the groundwork for the enduring characteristics that would define Poirot in the years to come. Poirot's meticulous nature is one of his most defining traits. He was obsessed with symmetry and order, a reflection of his orderly mind. Whether it was straightening objects, polishing his shoes, or rearranging his surroundings, Poirot's obsession with precision reflected the way he approached solving crimes. For Poirot, everything had a place, every detail mattered, and every clue, no matter how small, was a key to unraveling the mystery. This obsession with symmetry was not just a quirk. It was the way he processed the world around him. Poirot's reliance on his little grey cells became his trademark catchphrase. He didn't rely on physical prowess or the traditional detective tools of the time. He didn't need them. Instead, Poirot's method was cerebral. He used psychology, logic, and his acute powers of observation to deduce the answers to the most perplexing cases. His famous line, "The brain, it is everything," encapsulated his approach. Poirot solved cases like the ABC murders using his deep understanding of human behavior, finding patterns and motives where others saw only chaos. His eccentric charm, from his egg-shaped head to his twirling mustache, made Poirot unforgettable. But it wasn't just his appearance that captivated audiences. It was his accent, his mannerisms, and his unshakable confidence in his intellectual abilities that turned Poirot into a beloved figure. "Mon ami," he would say, his French accent infusing every conversation with his signature flair. Poirot starred in 33 novels, more than 50 short stories, and countless adaptations, including David Suchet's iconic TV portrayal and Kenneth Branagh's recent films. But where did Poirot's inspiration come from? Was he simply a product of Agatha Christie's imagination, or was there a real-life detective who served as her muse? The answer may lie in the story of Charles Augustus, Auguste Lucien Dupin, a Belgian detective whose life and methods seem to have mirrored Poirot's in uncanny ways. Dupin, born in Brussels in 1855, served as a detective in the Belgian Sûreté, working on high-profile cases across Europe. He eventually moved to London, where he consulted for Scotland Yard on some of the most puzzling crimes of the day. While Dupin was never as famous as Poirot, his legacy as a brilliant and meticulous detective is undeniable. Dupin's methods were highly methodical, and his obsession with detail closely mirrors Poirot's. He was known to obsess over seemingly insignificant clues, such as fabric fibers, shoe scuffs, or small misalignments, much like Poirot's attention to the tiniest details in his cases. In fact, one of Dupin's most famous cases was a 1902 art theft, where he solved the crime by noticing a slight misalignment in a painting frame, a subtle clue that others had overlooked. This method of solving cases through observation of the smallest details was something that Poirot would later adopt as his trademark. Dupin's sharp observations were another hallmark of his methods. In his 1908 memoir, Observations of a Detective, Dupin emphasized the importance of using the mind's eye over physical force. This idea of relying on psychological insight and intellectual prowess was something Poirot would later make his own. Dupin was able to solve a 1905 murder case by analyzing the psychological tells of a suspect, a tactic that Poirot would famously employ in his own investigations. Like Poirot, Dupin was also Belgian, which made him an outsider in the London scene where he worked. His accent and foreign background set him apart. Much like Poirot's post-WWI refugee backstory, Dupin's unique status made him both intriguing and charming to his clients, and it was these same qualities that would later define Poirot in Christie's novels. While Christie never explicitly confirmed that Dupin was her inspiration for Poirot, the parallels between the two are striking. Dupin solved over 200 cases in his lifetime, including the famous 1907 Kensington jewel heist, a case that would have been a perfect fit for Poirot. His methods, meticulous, psychological, and focused on observation, were exactly the tools that Poirot would later use to crack the toughest cases. Christie, who lived near Belgian refugees during WWI, was likely exposed to Dupin's legacy. Her familiarity with the Belgian community in England, combined with her exposure to detective memoirs and the evolving world of crime solving, undoubtedly influenced the creation of Poirot. Dupin's psychological approach to solving crimes provided the foundation for Poirot's cerebral methods, distinguishing him from other detectives of the time, like Sherlock Holmes, who relied more on physical evidence and forensic science. Christie's own personal experiences shaped her writing and Poirot's character. As a nurse during WWI, Christie gained first-hand knowledge of poisons and medical details, which would later influence her writing, particularly in novels like The Mysterious Affair at Styles. Her interactions with Belgian refugees during the war likely planted the seed for Poirot's character, a Belgian detective who had seen the horrors of war and sought to bring order to a chaotic world. The brilliance of Poirot lies not just in his intellect, but in the way he navigates the world of intrigue and crime, using his keen psychological insights to uncover the truth. And it is Charles Dupin's legacy, more than anything else, that helped Christie craft a character who would go on to become the most iconic detective of all time. As Poirot's fame grew, so too did the world that Christie had created around him. The 1920s and 1930s were a golden age for crime fiction, and Poirot's cerebral methods resonated with a public hungry for mysteries that could challenge the mind rather than simply thrill with action. Agatha Christie, ever the master of suspense, shaped Poirot's world with an almost preternatural understanding of human nature and the intricacies of crime. The detective, with his impeccable manners, unflappable calm, and razor-sharp intellect, became the antithesis to the rough-and-tumble, action-driven detectives of the past. Poirot's world was one of logic and order, where the smallest detail, Whether it be a misplaced button, a dusting of fabric, or the flicker of an eye, could hold the key to solving a crime. His methods were precise, almost mathematical, but it was Poirot's understanding of the human psyche, his ability to read people's emotions, and his talent for uncovering the truth buried deep within a person, a subconscious, that made him unique among detectives. His reliance on his little grey cells was not just a catchphrase, it was a philosophy, a way of life. This methodical approach to crime solving set Poirot apart from his contemporaries, but it wasn't just his intellect that made him enduringly fascinating. Poirot was also a man of deep empathy. While his sharp mind dissected the clues, it was his compassion for the victims and his understanding of the human heart that gave his cases emotional depth. He wasn't just solving puzzles. He was uncovering the stories of real people who had been affected by crime, victims, witnesses, and sometimes even the criminals themselves. Poirot's humanity was part of his allure, and it was a reflection of Christie's own understanding of the human experience. The golden age of detective fiction was also the time when social change was rapidly reshaping the world. The 1920s were a period of tremendous transformation. World War I had changed the landscape of Europe, and the old social orders were beginning to crumble. In the midst of this turmoil, people found solace in the detective genre, where justice prevailed, and the complexities of the human condition could be unraveled by a keen intellect. Agatha Christie's Poirot fit perfectly into this new era, offering both a sense of nostalgia for the past and a means to navigate the uncertainties of the modern world. In stories like The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, 1926, and The ABC Murders, 1936, Poirot became not just a detective, but a symbol of order in a chaotic world. He was a character who could restore balance when everything seemed to be falling apart, and his triumphs were a reminder that logic and reason could prevail, even in the most desperate of circumstances. But it wasn't just Poirot's intellect or his method that made him stand out. It was his ability to see through the veneer of society, surface, and understand the deeper motivations of individuals. Christie's stories were filled with rich, multifaceted characters, and Poirot's skill was in uncovering their secrets. He understood that everyone had something to hide, whether it was guilt, jealousy, love, or revenge. And it was his job to uncover the truth hidden behind the masks people wore. It's no surprise then that Poirot's appeal stretched beyond the pages of Christie's books. His adventures captured the imagination of readers around the world, and soon Poirot became a cultural icon. In 1989, David Suchet brought Poirot to life in the British television series Agatha Christie's Poirot, a role that would define his career and cement Poirot's place in the hearts of millions. Suchet's portrayal of Poirot was nothing short of brilliant. He captured the character's eccentricities, his charm, and his razor-sharp intellect, all while maintaining the core of Poirot's humanity. Suchet's Poirot was both a detective and a gentleman, someone who never lost his composure, no matter how complex or dangerous the case. He was meticulous in his methods, fastidious in his appearance, and always several steps ahead of everyone else. But beneath that surface of precision and control was a man who cared deeply about justice and the human cost of the crimes he solved. Suchet's portrayal brought a warmth to Poirot, a depth that made him relatable, even as he stood apart from the world around him. Poirot's popularity was not confined to the small screen. Agatha Christie's books, which had already been bestsellers in their time, found a new generation of readers through television and film adaptations. Murder on the Orient Express, 1974, starring Albert Finney as Poirot, and later Kenneth Branagh's 2017 film adaptation, were huge successes, bringing Poirot's adventures to the big screen and reintroducing the character to an entirely new audience. The films, with their glamorous settings and star-studded casts, showcased the timeless nature of Poirot's mysteries and ensured his place as one of the most iconic detectives in popular culture. But while Poirot's fame grew, Agatha Christie herself remained a fascinating figure. Born in 1890 in Torquay, England, Christie's early life was shaped by her experiences and observations. As a young woman, Christie trained as a nurse during World War I, a job that exposed her to the dark side of human nature: poisons, illness, and death. It was during this time that Christie developed an intimate knowledge of poisons, a detail that would influence many of her novels, particularly Poirot's first case, The Mysterious Affair at Styles, 1920, in which the murderer uses strychnine to commit the crime. Christie's own life was as dramatic as her novels. In 1926, she disappeared for 11 days, sparking a media frenzy that would rival any of her fictional mysteries. During this period, she was dealing with personal trauma. Her husband, Archie, had been having an affair, and Christie's emotional state was in turmoil. This personal crisis honed her ability to understand the complexities of human drama and deception, which would later influence the depth of her characters, particularly Poirot's psychological insight into the human condition. Christie's travels with her second husband, archaeologist Max Mallowan, further shaped her writing. Her time spent in the Middle East, particularly in places like Syria and Iraq, influenced novels such as Murder in Mesopotamia, 1936, and Death on the Nile, 1937. These exotic settings, combined with Christie's keen understanding of human relationships, created the perfect backdrop for Poirot's investigations into greed, jealousy, and revenge. Christie's personal empathy for outsiders, those displaced by war or circumstance, also influenced Poirot's character. As a Belgian in England, Poirot was an outsider, someone who had to navigate a foreign society with wit and charm, traits that made him both relatable and fascinating to readers and viewers alike. But Poirot's legacy isn't just about the character's intellectual prowess or his cultural impact. It's about the way he embodies timeless themes of justice, order, and human frailty. In every case he solves, Poirot brings a sense of closure and justice, restoring balance to a world that is often full of uncertainty and chaos. His famous line, "The brain, it is everything," is more than just a catchphrase. It's a philosophy. In a world where the unpredictable and the unknown reign, Poirot is a reminder that truth is attainable, even in the most complex and convoluted of circumstances. And while Agatha Christie never publicly acknowledged Charles Dupin as her inspiration, the echoes of Dupin's methods and character can be seen in every page of Poirot's cases. From Dupin's meticulous observation to Poirot's psychological insight, the influence is undeniable. Christie's genius lay in her ability to take Dupin's real-world brilliance and create a character who would not only solve the greatest mysteries, but also capture the hearts and minds of generations of readers and viewers.